The movie opens by showing a very famous novelist named Kloster. He is in an auditorium promoting his latest book when he notices a girl named Luciana in the crowd and approaches her. An incident occurs and the story shifts into a flashback, taking us back 12 years earlier. We learn that Luciana works for Kloster. He narrates his novels while Luciana types everything onto the computer. During one of their sessions, Luciana explains the different types of mushrooms, identifying which ones are edible and which are poisonous. However, Kloster keeps looking at Luciana with lustful eyes. Kloster has a wife and a daughter. His wife's name is Mercedes, and his daughter's name is Polly. Luciana plays with Polly every day because the little girl is very attached to her. Kloster also deeply loves his daughter. It is also revealed that Luciana works with another writer named Esteban Rey. However, she never tells Esteban about the novels Kloster is writing. The next day, Luciana visits Kloster's house again. But this time, Mercedes and Polly are out, leaving Kloster and Luciana alone in the house. As usual, they continue working on the novel, but Kloster once again gives Luciana inappropriate looks. He explains that his wife once loved belly dancing, but a car accident shattered all of her dreams. Since then, she has struggled with anger issues. Kloster also learns that Luciana is working with a writer named Esteban Rey. Luciana explains that Esteban is not very famous, but he knows who Kloster is. Kloster suddenly tries to get closer to Luciana and forcibly kisses her. Luciana is immediately offended and pushes him away. However, Kloster tells her, "I thought you were getting me signals, that's why I kissed you." Distressed and uncomfortable, Luciana leaves the house. When she returns home, we learn more about her large family. She lives with her parents, her two older brothers Ramiro and Bruno, and her younger sister Valentina. Luciana tells her mother everything that happened. She decides to file a complaint against Kloster, and a copy of the complaint is sent to his house. When Mercedes sees it, she completely loses control. In a horrifying moment, she drowns her own daughter Polly in the bathtub before overdosing on alcohol and killing herself as well. When Kloster arrives home, he discovers the complaint Luciana filed against him, along with the bodies of his wife and daughter. The tragedy leaves him completely devastated. Later, Luciana and her mother officially file a harassment case against Kloster. During the hearing, Kloster arrives in silence. Without saying a single word, he accepts the charges, pays the settlement, and angrily leaves. At that point, Luciana still has no idea that Kloster's wife and daughter are dead. A few days later, Luciana and her family head to the beach to enjoy their summer vacation. Luciana goes to fetch water when she suddenly sees Kloster there. She immediately realizes that his presence at that location cannot be a coincidence. She tells her family, but they dismiss her fears and insist it's only a coincidence. The next day, the family continues enjoying their vacation. But this time, a violent storm hits the sea, forcing everyone to take shelter. However, Ramiro is still outside. After the storm subsides, his body is discovered. Luciana sees Kloster nearby and becomes convinced that he may have killed her brother. Terrified, Luciana writes an apology letter to Kloster. A few days later, Luciana returns home. It is now her parents' anniversary. She wishes them well, and as usual, they prepare mushrooms for their celebration dinner. But soon after, Luciana receives devastating news. Her parents have been rushed to the hospital. When she arrives, she discovers that her father is dead while her mother has suffered severe brain damage. Luciana immediately realizes that Kloster was responsible. She remembers once telling him that her parents always ate mushrooms on their anniversary, and now she believes he poisoned them. One by one, Luciana's family members are being wiped out. Not long afterward, someone attacks Luciana's brother Bruno and kills him because Bruno had been exchanging letters with the man's wife. However, when Luciana investigates, she learns that the killer was actually a prisoner who had escaped after serving 25 years in prison. Even more disturbing, the person who had been writing letters to that prisoner was Kloster himself. Luciana now becomes fully convinced that Kloster is behind Bruno's death as well. At this point, Luciana has lost nearly her entire family. The only people she has left are her younger sister Valentina and her mother, who remains in a nursing home. Luciana goes to visit her mother at the nursing home, but when she comes outside, she sees Kloster sitting at a nearby cafe. Terrified for the safety of her remaining family, Luciana contacts her old friend Esteban Rey and asks him to come to her house. When Esteban arrives, Luciana finally reveals everything. She explains how Kloster destroyed her family one by one and tells Esteban that her mother could be his next target. Since Esteban now works for a news agency, Luciana begs him to publish a story exposing Kloster. She believes that if Kloster's image is threatened publicly, he may stop targeting her family. But Esteban hesitates. He doesn't want to involve himself in such a dangerous situation. Luciana argues that Closter destroyed Esteban's dreams as well. She tells him that he could have become a successful writer if Closter's influence and wealth had not overshadowed him. Esteban leaves without saying a word. Back at home, he thinks deeply about everything Luciana told him. Eventually, he decides that he will investigate Closter himself and search for evidence. Esteban goes to his boss and insists they should publish Luciana's story, but his boss refuses. He explains that they cannot print accusations without proof. So Esteban heads to a library and searches through old newspapers and archived interviews involving Closter. Afterward, he visits Luciana's old neighborhood. There, he meets a woman who initially mistakes him for someone interested in buying a house. But Esteban explains that he actually came to ask about Luciana. The woman tells him that terrible things happened to Luciana and her family. She says it never made sense that Luciana's parents, who knew so much about mushrooms, could accidentally poison themselves. Then she raises another possibility. Maybe the mistake was Valentina's, or maybe Closter intentionally gave Valentina the poisonous mushrooms that ultimately killed Luciana's father. Esteban later visits the inspector who handled Bruno's murder case. The inspector admits that the case made no sense to him. He explains that he never understood how the prisoner escaped, why he targeted Bruno, or what connection Bruno had with the prisoner's wife. He also reveals that Luciana was obsessed with proving Closter's involvement. Finally, Esteban decides to confront Closter directly and goes to his house. Closter calmly explains that Luciana was unstable and manipulated everyone around her. He claims he himself became trapped by her actions and had to make terrible sacrifices because of it. He even shows Esteban the apology letter Luciana once sent him. Esteban accuses Closter of being connected to every death in Luciana's family, pointing out that he somehow appeared near every tragedy. But Closter dismisses it all as coincidence. He insists that the only real murder was Bruno's, and the killer was already caught. To justify his argument, Closter uses the example of flipping a coin. He says that every toss has a 50% chance of landing on heads or tails, yet outcomes can still appear strangely connected even when they are completely random. Therefore, Closter argues that it does not necessarily mean he is responsible for all the deaths that have occurred. But one day, a fire suddenly breaks out at the same nursing home where Luciana's mother is living. Luciana's mother, along with many others, dies in the fire. A Chinese man is blamed for causing it. When Esteban Rey arrives at the scene, he discovers a book written by Closter. Later, when Esteban returns to his office, he finds his boss reading an old magazine article that Esteban had once written criticizing Closter. His boss accuses him of using the newspaper to settle a personal rivalry, saying that Esteban has always been jealous of Closter's success. Afterward, his boss sends him away. That night, Esteban goes to a bar and drinks heavily. Completely drunk, he repeatedly flips a coin, obsessing over whether everything happening is truly coincidence or part of a larger conspiracy. Meanwhile, Luciana is at home with her younger sister Valentina, who has brought over a friend named Camila. It is revealed that Valentina and Camila are secretly in love. Luciana overhears part of their conversation and learns something terrifying. Valentina recently interviewed Closter because he is preparing to release a new book, and Closter specifically told her not to tell anyone about it. Luciana immediately becomes convinced that Valentina is Closter's next target. Determined to protect her sister at any cost, she contacts Esteban Rey and tells him they need to meet Closter. Esteban and Luciana arrive at an event where Closter is reading from his new book to an audience. Using his press pass, Esteban helps Luciana enter the building. This is revealed to be the same scene shown at the very beginning of the movie. The story has now returned to the present timeline. Luciana waits for Closter on the third floor while Esteban informs Closter that she is there. Esteban warns him that if Luciana causes a scene, the media downstairs will witness everything. Closter calmly decides to meet her. When they finally face each other, Luciana begs him to stop, but Closter replies coldly, "I didn't start this, you did. It's up to you when you want to stop it." Then he gestures toward the edge, implying that she should jump. Luciana slowly realizes that the only way to end the nightmare may be to sacrifice herself. Before making her decision, she asks him one final question. "What guarantee do I have that you won't hurt my sister, Valentina?" Closter responds by saying that he also lost his daughter, and if Polly were still alive, she would now be around Valentina's age. He claims that Valentina is like a daughter to him and promises he will never harm her. At that moment, another man approaches Closter while he is still speaking with Luciana. Taking advantage of the distraction, Luciana jumps from the building and takes her own life. Esteban Rey rushes toward her body, and when he looks back up, he sees Closter standing above. Later, Luciana's body is cremated. When Esteban arrives at the cremation, he finds Valentina already there, in Kloster's arms. Once they are alone, Esteban angrily tells Kloster that Valentina is only 18 years old. But Kloster calmly responds that she will turn 18 next week and that her age does not matter. He says that both he and Valentina understand loss because they have both lost their families. Furious, Esteban calls him a murderer and a monster. Kloster simply replies that Luciana used to say the exact same thing. Then he gives Esteban a chilling warning. Look what happened to her family. You should watch your words. You still have a family. Esteban is left powerless as Kloster walks away. In the final moments, we realize that Kloster has begun pursuing a relationship with Luciana's younger sister Valentina, and judging by her expression, she does not seem disturbed by it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next recap.